Welcome to the Self-Publishing Workshop. I'm so glad that you're here today. There is a question and answer tool on the webinar. So if you have any questions throughout today's presentation, please feel free to type them in. I'll either answer them in the moment if I'm still on the subject, or I'll answer them at the end of the webinar today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see here. And hopefully that comes up just fine for you all. Let me open up my question and answer Q&A too, so I can keep an eye on any questions that come through. All right, and if you can't hear me at any point, please let me know in the Q&A so that way I can make any adjustments to the volume, but we'll go ahead and get started. So this is, of course, all about what you need to know for self-publishing. This is one of those paths that I know, especially today, a lot of people think about and consider, but they don't really know the ins and outs or the best way to approach it. So I want to give kind of a high-level overview in this presentation, specifically the details needed to make sure if you choose this route, it's number one, fully aligned with you and your vision. And you also don't make any of the common mistakes that I see new authors making when they choose the self-publishing route. So let's go ahead and dive on in. Oops, let's see here, getting ahead of myself. So working with authors who are looking to publish, I've realized that a lot of aspiring authors, they don't realize all of the available options when it comes to their book. They don't realize the 3 different paths that there are, which we'll talk about here in a bit. And they don't really see how important it is to align their goals and values with the choice that they make in the publishing process as a whole. And they also don't tend to understand the scope of the pros and the cons of each decision they make, especially in the self-publishing process. So I really want to hit on that today. They also tend to follow what another author has done. And I hear this a lot. Well, I have this author friend who did this, or this author friend did this, or someone I admire took this path. And although it's great to be able to watch what other authors are doing and take notes, you always still have to filter it through the lens of what you're doing in your own author path. Many of us have very different goals, very different priorities of those goals. And of course, if we're writing in completely different genres, the markets are different, the approaches are different. Everything is, there are just so many variables. And so it's important that if you are admiring someone else's path, that you're really tuning into whether or not they have the same goals as you do and whether or not they're writing in the same genre, because there are always going to be different actions that need to happen. They tend to sacrifice authenticity for what they think they should do instead of what truly reflects them. I hear the shoulds all the time. Well, I should do this, right? Or I should do that. But there's a balance between, sometimes most of this actually will feel outside of our comfort zone when we're doing it for the first time. It's really hard to learn something new in general, especially when you're learning something new that's going to be so visible on a greater scale. So we tend to sacrifice bits and pieces of who we are or what we want to stand for through the process. And then suddenly by the time we get to the end, we're reflecting back and we're like, this is not our original vision. So I really want to make sure that we are honoring our true goals, our true selves throughout this process. And then they also tend to forget about the reader journey experience, which is very, very important to marry with your own vision. Because if you want this book to truly make an impact, you have to be able to see it from the reader journey and how they are feeling about the entire book, what they resonate with, how their full experience is. It's the same thing with like going in to eat at a restaurant, right? I mean, we've all had the waiters, waitresses who, you know, just seem like they're there because it's a paycheck, versus those who are really catering to making sure we have a very enjoyable experience from beginning to end, or even the way the restaurant's set up is to really emphasize that customer experience. And we need to be thinking about that in the same way with our book and what we're delivering to our reader. Those are the books that make the biggest impact. So this workshop is created to help you decide if self-publishing is indeed for you. Hopefully you'll learn a few things that you didn't know before, and it'll help you feel either completely confident in this path, or it'll give you some insight into another path that's more aligned with you. It should give you a map for self-publishing based on your goals. Again, it'll emphasize that reader journey experience, which I'm a big fan of. And it'll show you some of the most important elements of self-publishing. And the most importantly, we'll talk about embracing how to weave in your authentic self with your book to help you connect with your ideal reader, which for me leads to that lasting impact on a reader. My voice is going in and out today too, so I apologize. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Lauren Eckhart. I'm the CEO and founder of Burning Soul Collective. I'm also an award-winning and best-selling author and ghostwriter. But really, I started Burning Soul Press to motivate people to achieve that dream of writing their book. Because I had spent, since I was 6 years old, I knew I wanted to be an author, but it took me nearly 2.5 decades to actually achieve that dream. And so I know how hard it is. I know the challenges of the path. I know that self-doubt that you have. I know the confusion of, where do I take this? What do I do next? What's the best decision that I can make? And so Burning Soul Collective is really there to give confidence to authors in every step that they take, ensuring that is the one that is best aligned with them. We're also all about taking our most authentic selves, our life journeys, and turning those into powerful books that really make an impact, because books last longer than just about anything else, right? They get passed down through the hands from person to person, and they're around forever, even after our lives here are finished. And so I'm very passionate about, if we're putting out a book, making sure that it's one that truly reflects the impact and our legacy here in this world. So Burning Soul Press as a whole is fueled by passionate creatives and authors using their stories, words, and talent to change the world. So let's talk about the 3 different publishing paths briefly. And I just want to hit on these just in case you weren't fully aware of some of the pros and cons of them all. So the 3 paths are traditional, hybrid, and self-publishing. Traditional is the one that's been around the longest, right? It used to be the only way to get your book out into the world. And typically it takes a connection with a publishing house, typically one of the big 5, to bring your book out into the world. And the process for that is usually first querying to literary agents, trying to find one that represents your genre, one that seems like a good fit for you and your book. And your first step is really trying to find a literary agent who then will either take on your book or pass. And then if they take it on, they're taking your book through an editing process before they then go and pitch it, try to sell it to a publishing house. So that whole process can typically take anywhere from 1 to 3 years before your book is officially out in the public eye. But like I said, it's been the process that's been around for the longest time. The pros and cons to it. I mean, the pros are that obviously a big publishing house has picked up your book, right? Which is great. You're getting immediate access to bookstores, your book being available everywhere because they have those sales connections already set up in bookstores, ready to go. And then you have a team of experts who are really helping your book be competitive out into the market, which are all great wins. And then of course, there's no upfront fees when you're taking the traditional publishing route. You're receiving royalties on the back end, which can be one of the cons because the publishing house is taking, anywhere from usually about 85% of your royalties. And royalties are the monies left over after, distribution costs, cost that goes into making your book, printing of your book, all of that. It's what's left over after the sale. And it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So when you're receiving, 15% on average of that, it doesn't really amount to much, but there are some other pros to consider with that. I'm going to hop over to self-publishing. Self-publishing is really when you take control over everything with your book. You're responsible for every single step, which we'll talk about today, to bring it out into the world. So you have the full control. You're really able to keep your original vision intact because you are the one bringing that to life. The cons with that is that there are going to be upfront fees. We'll talk about this in a bit. People will tend to try to cut corners with that and do it as cheaply as possible, but that will come back to hurt you. And again, we'll talk about that in a moment. So it's really important to invest in this because it is an investment. It's a book. It's a book that's going to be around forever. There are also a lot of moving parts when it comes to self-publishing. It's not just the pre-publishing, publishing, post-publishing. I mean, there's post-publishing too, like with marketing and all of that, because you can't just put your book out on Amazon or Barnes and Noble online and hope that people will see it. There's a lot of extra things that go into it, from the back end with the metadata to, then marketing it and making sure it gets in front of people. Again, things that we'll talk about in a bit. So then there's hybrid, which is really a mix of traditional and self-publishing. Usually you're going to have smaller press companies take the hybrid approach. And what that is they are taking a team of experts. They have the editors, the cover designers, they have everything set up for you, ready to go. And they're serving as project managers for you in a lot of ways. And also you're able to publish under an official imprint name, such as Burning Soul Press. So that would be like your imprint name that you would be publishing under. The cons with it is that it's going to be an upfront fee because you've got the cover designer, you've got the editing costs, you've got all of that, same as you would for self-publishing. And then they won't always have all the connections to the bookstores. And just like self-publishing, though, it's possible to get your book into the bookstores. There's just a way to go about it. But again, so many of the book sales are done online now. So even with self-publishing, you're still going to have a lot of book sales. But I know, for example, a lot of people have the dream of seeing their book in a bookstore, right? And like I said, it's still possible through hybrid and self-publishing, but traditional is more of that guaranteed versus hybrid and self-publishing taking a lot more work to achieve that. So that's a high level overview of the three. We do have a free course that runs you through more of the details with traditional, hybrid, and self-publishing. It's on the burningsoulcollective.com/store website. And it's the World of Publishing crash course. So it's a free course that you can take, and it will just break down traditional, hybrid, and self-publishing even more if you want to learn more details. So really the most important thing you can do is to ask yourself, what is the ultimate vision for your book? And what are your goals? I know for a lot of authors that I work with, it sometimes feels like it's just one step in front of the other, and there's really no clear view of the mountain that they're trying to, get to the top of. And it's so important to have that locked in so that you're able to make the right decisions, because there are going to be many, many decisions that you make on this path. So even when it comes down to choosing your right publishing path, you really want to weigh what's most important to you. Is it having your book in the bookstores and the ease of making that happen? Then traditional is going to be the right path for you. Is it having that full control? Because maybe you're an entrepreneur, you already love the business side of things. Maybe you just want that full control, the full creative control. It's really important to you that your vision stays true and is not influenced or edited by anyone else. Then self-publishing, or even hybrid publishing, if you find the right hybrid publisher, will be best for you. So you have to figure out what's most important. Is it not investing any money up front? Then again, it's traditional. If it's wanting to retain all the money for sales for the rest of your life, then look at self-publishing or hybrid. So it's really, really important to prioritize what's most important to you when you're making your publishing decision. All right, so let's dive into why self-publish even more. So I hit on a few points already, but overall, you've got more control over your book and you keep 100% of the rights for your book, which allows you to do basically whatever you want to do with your words, with your story, with your message, your book. More royalties. So you retain 100% of the net royalties, meaning that, if your book is for sale for $15, you have to take out distributor costs depending on the platforms that you go through, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, whatever it may be, and then the printing cost of the book. And then those royalties, the net royalties, are what remains after those costs, and that comes to you. Then 100% would come to you. On average, it kind of depends on the book size, how thick it is, how big it is, colored pages, black and white. But on average, if one of our authors has a book for sale for, $15, they're usually retaining about $3.50 on a paperback after printing costs and distributor costs. So if that gives you kind of a ballpark of what that 100% royalties looks like. I'm really sorry for my voice. Like I said, all rights remain yours. Quicker turnaround to the market. This is a big pro. Like I said, with traditional publishing, it tends to take about 1 to 3 years. Self-publishing, you could get it out next week. I don't recommend that because I recommend doing all the steps in the right way and to really have a solid marketing plan before you launch your book out into the world. I mean, I always say at minimum 6 to 8 months is a good place to be at minimum. The more time you can give yourself to really build up hype for the book and to do everything the right way, the better. But self-publish, you could get it out next week if you were really determined to do so. You have the full vision coming to life. I mean, exactly everything that you imagine for this book can come true because you have control. You can find the right cover designers who see your vision as well and bring it to life, or maybe even add like a fun new flair or energy into it. You can control the way the interior of the book looks. Everything can come to life. You can keep your story exactly as you wanted it to be too, which tends to change, the more hands it goes through in the traditional publishing process. You have flexibility as needed. And what I mean by this is that, if you're writing a memoir and it's 10 years after that last page occurred, and you're like, you know what, I would just really love to put out a new edition where it's an update with where I'm at in life or what happened as a result of XYZ. What's cool is that you can do that because this is your book and you have full control if you suddenly want to go back and update your book with something. And then truly there's unlimited potential. Gosh, I can't stress this enough. There are some great Facebook groups out there with indie authors, so independent authors who self-publish, where they're making $1 million from self-publishing. And it's so great seeing their strategies and what they're implementing and how things are working for them and being inspired by like, it's possible. Like there's unlimited potential. It's coming up as an anonymous attendee, so I don't have your name here, but there was a question. Does traditional publishing also include design of website and launch materials? No. Now, this is something that is something that a lot of people tend to believe, but the publishing industry has shifted so much over the past few years. It's different. So now, especially with the integration of social media and everything, traditional publishers are very curious in how big your social media platforms are. Like when you are sending queries out, that's a question on a lot of the different forums is how big is your social media platform? They want to know that if they publish your book, that you've got a marketing plan in place, like that you've got a way to reach your readers, specifically for the nonfiction book side of things. So the marketing, you as an author, no matter what path you choose, are going to be highly responsible for the marketing of your book and the success of your book. It's just not something that is done the way that it used to be done way back in the golden days, good old days. And it's one of those myths that a lot of people tend to believe until they're kind of faced with the truth of it. But yeah, marketing, no matter what path you choose, that's going to be on you. You'll get guidance, but it's going to be on you. Now, I wanted to quickly shift that word marketing for a moment, because I know as an author, specifically as an introvert, that would always intimidate me like crazy. I just wanted to put my books out there and not really do anything about it past that point. But then it's kind of depressing when you spend all this time and energy into your book and then it's not going anywhere. It's not reaching the people, right? Because none of that marketing was done. None of the sharing about it was done. And we actually have one of our employees right now. She's releasing her romance trilogy. Her name is Jelena Vickas. You guys should follow her because she does such a great job of just like this energy behind her book release. She's so excited to share it, so excited to tell people about it, to bring other readers into the world of the characters that she developed. And it's so great to watch her because it's like, yeah, there should be nothing that you're hiding behind when it comes to releasing your book in the world and sharing it with people. It should be a celebration. Because it takes a lot to write a book. And that's why a lot of people might set out and try it, but then never finish it. It takes a lot. So the fact that you accomplished it, you should be screaming that from the rooftops and just be so excited to share with people what you wrote. So it's really more of how can I make the biggest impact with this book? How can I get it in front of the people that I know it was meant for, and really coming at it from that approach. But yes, a long roundabout way of saying that no matter what path you choose, you're going to have to be responsible for a lot of the marketing. They might guide you. They might provide some of that like launch material templates, but overall it'll be you on the marketing front. All right, see if I can get this going. There we go. Oops. So some of the unique aspects of self-publishing. So when self-publishing first became possible, I don't even know, 10, 15 years ago, maybe even more. I mean, Amazon really was the first platform with CreateSpace. That was their original. Now it's KDP Publishing. When they first made it possible, a lot of people were like, oh, wow, I can just put out a book whenever I want. This is pretty cool. So there became this whole movement of sense of people going, wow, I can publish a book super easily. So they would put it out there and it would be done very, very poorly. The covers wouldn't be done very well. The editing would be non-existent. There'd be tons of grammar mistakes and everything else. And so self-publishing got a really bad reputation when it was first launched for that reason. And it's one of the reasons why you'll see a lot of people who start to step into self-publishing, they immediately have that like embarrassment with it. Like, I don't want people to know that I self-publish. Like I want to put my book out there, but I don't want to say that I self-published it. First of all, if everything's been done in a very professional way, which again, we'll go into, people aren't looking for the self-published books. The old method of self-publishing, it would stand out. And even today, right? Even still today, people rush through the process. They don't do it the right way. And you can see a self-published book over a traditionally published book. But if it's done the right way and done professionally, people don't know the difference between a self-published book and a published book. So, that's something to keep in mind. And truly the reason why self-publishing got such a bad reputation was just because people rushed it and did such a poor job. And the visual aspect, the reader journey experience part of the book. And so now it's different. Like I said, now for many self-published books, you can't tell the difference. You cannot, because those authors have studied the market. They have created covers that represent their book, that represent their brand, but also are competitive in the marketplace. They, hit all the trends and everything else. It's really done differently. And that's why I said some of those groups where it's like you can be around those indie authors who are really making it. It's crucial to see what they're doing and how well they're doing it. So the other aspect is that if you self-publish, don't approach this like a hobby. It should truly be approached as a business. Anything with your self-publishing business, as I'm going to call it, needs to be a completely different like business account. I don't want to go into this because I don't want to give advice related to having different accounts or anything, but it should be set up as like a business account. So it's separated from your personal. And then you should also take the time to create an imprint name for your self-publishing. And what an imprint is, it's like, any name that the book is published under, like Penguin Random House or, Burning Soul Press or anything like that. So you want to choose something that is professional sounding, and it's not just your name. I mean, you can, but then people will definitely know that it's self-published then, right? And a lot of times you don't need to necessarily start like an LLC or anything with your state in order to create your own imprint name. Many times, like for Illinois, when I had started mine originally before Burning Soul Press became a company that it is today, Burning Soul Press started out as an imprint name for my books, and all I had to do was a DBA, which is a doing business as, to set up what would be that imprint, and then what all of my royalties earned under that imprint would be filtered into. So every state's a little different. I would look into it for you, but definitely treat this like it's a business. And then when you approach it in that way, you make smarter, more professional decisions related to the book's outcome. Remember that it's an upfront investment. It's not a cost. It's truly an investment in the impact of your book. And that to me is one of those mindset shifts again, is when you look at it as like, okay, man, I got to pay for editing. I got to pay for a cover design. I might have to pay for interior design. I have to pay for my ISBNs. It's an investment. And when you're able to make smart decisions like that, knowing that your book is going to be available for as long as you want it to be available, and you're getting those 100% royalties in return, not only is it nice to know that that can come back, but it also makes you want to make those decisions to get your book out in front of people more, so that there are sales and you can recoup those costs, recoup that investment. Remember that there's a right way and a wrong way to self-publish, and we'll talk about some of that. Some of that is like that cover design aspect, not having your book edited. That's all incredibly important to do. And then that there will always be challenges to overcome. I mean, it's like anything, the book markets shift all the time. I mean, romance is a huge genre, right? And that's something in particular that if you're a romance author, like that industry or that market is constantly shifting. Like there's different types of subgenres that the market is suddenly leaning toward, or certain covers or certain tropes or whatever it might be. So it's really important to stay on top of trends and stay on top of the market. So especially if you're publishing multiple books, so what's selling and what's not, or, how your unique approach could really fill in a gap in the market right now. So the things you need to know overall is really having that strong and clear vision. If you don't feel like for example, what your cover should look like, take a look at some of your favorite books. What elements of those books were you drawn to and why? What would represent the contents that you're sharing? And then really, connect with your target reader the most. The reader experience from outside in and inside out, That's really making sure that everything is cohesive on the outside as well as on the inside. You don't want someone to be drawn to your book based off of the cover and the blurb, and then they open it up and read it and they're like, oh wow, this is nothing like what the cover said I was going to receive, or the experience I thought I would have as a result. So it's really important to make sure that the entire bit is cohesive, and that is truly that reader experience from beginning to end, from the time that they pick up the book, they hold it in their hands, to even after they've read it and it's sitting on their shelf, and you want them to still have that same powerful connection with the cover of the book, but the outside of the book, that they did while they were reading your book. So it's really important to consider that. Difference between print on demand or other options. So many times with indie authors, we tend to lean towards the print on demand model, which is what you're going to receive by going through places such as KDP, which is Amazon's publishing, self-publishing, or Ngram Spark, which Ngram Spark tends to filter books into Barnes and Noble online or any other indie bookstore, and allows bookstores to stock them if they so choose, which there are, again, efforts that have to go into place on the self-publishing front to allow bookstores to stock the book. But so print on demand is essentially that every time an order comes through, so whether it's coming through Amazon or coming through Barnes and Noble, that book doesn't get printed until that order comes in. And then it gets printed right there in the facility and immediately shipped out. The pros of this is that you're not then having to spend all of this money in stocking your book. You don't have to buy 1,000 copies and then ship them out yourself. You don't have to pay for a warehouse to do that for you. Now, you can do that if you want to. It's a great way on the margin front. I think one of the best things you can do, and you can experiment with this, you can set up your book as print on demand, but then you can buy your book at wholesale on the back end as being an author, as an owner of that account. So say if it costs, again, if your book is being sold for $15, if it is being printed from Amazon and then shipped out from Amazon straight to that company, or straight to the customer, you might receive $3.50 in royalties by the time it's done, because of the printing cost of your book and because of the distributor cost, which is the money going to Amazon for your book being on the platform and someone buying it through Amazon. Now, if you actually bought them wholesale on the back end, maybe it costs your book, maybe it costs $4 for each of your books to be printed. That's essentially the only cost that you're paying. You might have to pay for shipping of those books to you. But if you order, 50 or 100 of those books at wholesale cost, meaning at the essential printing cost, and then you go and you sell them at book fairs or at conferences or whatever it may be at $15, then you're making an $11 profit versus the $3.50 profit that you're making otherwise. So it's really great to still have that option of wholesale and then being able to resell them however you want. But the print on demand is really great too, because you don't have to spend that money up front if you don't want to, especially since you're investing in a lot of other areas. So these are the things that you need when it comes to really getting your book prepared and out there for self-publishing. Number one is professional editing. Please do not skip on those. Like I said, it's one of the biggest determining factors between, being able to see when a book's been self-published versus one that's been traditionally published. Professional editing, at minimum, you need line editing and proofing. Line editing is more of when the editor is going to go through line by line and check for flow and grammatical errors, and really just the overall, and again, I call it reader experience from the editing perspective, anything that needs to be changed in that regard. And then proofreading is that final read through, making sure that there are no spelling errors, that all the punctuation's accurate. It's really that polishing of your book. I cannot recommend enough at least doing a line edit and a proofread. If you want to go the extra step before you do those things, you should also do a developmental edit. And that's going to be a little bit more costly, but it will really give you a higher level perspective and make you feel more confident, because the editor will approach it and, is the reader actually receiving everything that they need to understand the book, to receive the message that you're trying to bring to them. Fiction wise, they'll look at, or even memoir wise, they'll look at plot arcs, character development throughout. It gives you so much great feedback when it comes to your book, that I highly recommend investing in the editing part specifically. You need to know the market that you're entering, because you want to be able to make the decisions after that are competitive. So, I mean, get some books, or, go to the library and scout out the books that are in your same genre. Look at Amazon at the top 100 books that are selling right now in your specific genre, and get a feel for the vibe of all of those books and what seems to really be resonating with people. And then look at it, and how can you marry that with your own vision for your book, or the content of your book, to still be able to reach your target market. You want to look at book size and paper preference. This is one that many people don't consider when it comes to self-publishing until they're given that option, and then they're like, oh, I'm not sure what to choose. So with paper, I mean, you're going to have things from white paper to cream paper. Didn't even think about it as a reader, but then once I started publishing, I was like, oh wow, yeah, like you start going through and you can see the difference. It's more obvious between white and cream paper. Book size makes a huge difference. For most nonfiction, for example, you're going to have the two most standard are 5.5 by 8.5 and 6 by 9. Again, I just recommend taking some of your favorite books related to the same genre, holding them, and feeling which one speaks to you in terms of thinking about your own book, and then measure that size. And if that's a size that you seem to gravitate to, that's huge. The other thing to think about is really that experience you want to be able to deliver to the reader. We've had 2 of our authors so far choose like smaller size books, because they wanted it just to be something that the reader can just carry in their purse really easily, or pull out when need be, and flip through it, or have it be, more personal and private in that sense. So those are all things to consider. How do you want the reader to be able to interact with your book? Becky asked, how do you decide between a soft cover or hardcover? Honestly, it's up to you. How do you envision that book to be? Becky, I know specifically you're looking at, children's books, for example, and a lot of children's books are hardcover because they hold up, right? Like I know my kids are rough sometimes with books. They'll finish reading one and then they'll just kind of fling it, which makes me cringe a little bit. But then paperback is great too, because they're thinner, they're softer, they're easier to carry. Like if I'm going on vacation with kids and I'm grabbing books, I'm taking paperback books because they fit better into the suitcase when they're stacked. So again, it's really up to you, and there's no reason why you can't do both. The other slight negative with hardcover is that it's going to cost more to print. So you got to remember, anytime that hardcovers are a consideration, they're going to lessen your royalties unless you offset that by increasing the hardcover price, which is why most hardcovers cost more, because they cost more to print. And so the royalties shrink. So again, it's really up to you and what you envision your reader holding. ISBNs, these are, when you have a book, it's the numbers on the back of the book by the barcode usually, or then when you open up the first page, you'll see the ISBNs. Now, you want an ISBN for each format of your book. So like, for example, Becky, you just asked about the soft cover versus hardcover. If you do both, you're going to have one ISBN for the soft cover, one ISBN for the hardcover. And then if you decide to do an ebook too, you'll have one ISBN for ebook. If you decide to do a hardcover book, you'll have one ISBN for an audiobook. You'll have one ISBN for an audiobook as well. So the thing with the ISBNs, the most important piece of advice that I can give you is to not take a free ISBN from KDP or Ngram Spark if you're uploading through those platforms. And this is why. When you buy your own ISBNs, which you would through, if you're US based, through Bowker, which you can also, I think the actual website is myidentifiers.com. You own that ISBN. So you can determine how you want to set the setting for having bookstores return your book or destroying your book if someone returns it. And this is a huge difference, because if you take a free ISBN through KDP or Ngram Spark, for example, it's automatically set as non-returnable on the ISBN front. And why this is important is because if you're wanting your bookstore or a bookstore to stock your book, they will not stock one that has a non-returnable setting on that ISBN, because then they're going to lose money if they stock your book. So it has to be returnable, set as returnable. So you will put yourself into a pigeonhole if you take a free ISBN from KDP or Ngram Spark. And a lot of people will do that because it is an investment on the ISBN front. I mean, I think for a set of 10 of them, it's probably anywhere from $150 to $250. So it seems like a huge investment, but you don't want to pigeonhole yourself, because you should be thinking about the long-term life of this book. You also want to make sure that you have your dedication, which is usually in the beginning, like who this book is for, the acknowledgments at the end, everyone you want to thank for, inspiring your book or helping you bring it to life, and about the author as well. And the thing with this is that this really gives those personal touches to your story or to your book, so that the reader's able to connect with you even more. Like if I read a book that I love, I'm immediately reading these because I love just feeling even more connected with the author. And then what that does is it makes me want to follow them. It makes me want to see what other books they've written. So it's more of those personal touches too. And then of course, if this book is dedicated to someone important to you, it's lovely to have that in there. Interesting, doesn't Amazon take returns anyway? It is very interesting. The other thing though that you have to think about is Amazon has dominated the book industry. I mean, they came in I'm guilty of it. Okay. Like I love bookstores, but when I'm looking for a book right away, it's just easier for me to order it off Amazon. I don't always feel great about that, as I'm stumbling even to admit that, but Amazon has dominated the book place. So if you take it at Amazon ISBN, there are going to be bookstores that will not stock it because it's an Amazon ISBN, but most importantly, it's the non-returnable thing. And that's just the way Amazon has it marked. They will take returns, Amazon will, but again, if you're looking at having it in a bookstore specifically, they need that as marked as returnable. Amazon will take it because Amazon will take any returns, and of course they'll take their own books as returns, but other bookstores won't. Good question. So interior formatting, now this is another big one. We use Vellum for a lot of our interior formatting. Vellum is only and that's VELLUM. Vellum is only available on Macs right now, but it's really great because it's a great way to add all of these extra design elements to your book. And not only that, but it will immediately convert it to the document type that you need to upload on KDP or Ngram Spark or Draft to Digital. It'll convert it into the right format for paperback, hardcover, for ebook. So not only can you add a lot of extra design elements, including pictures, including, different fonts, but you can also, it's like an easy push of a button to have it formatted in various formats that you need. Now, like I said, Vellum is for Mac. There was a new one released for all computers, and that's Atticus, Atticus. And that's another one then that you can use also for formatting. And I just highly recommend it because it's a great way to add that professional touch to your book again. And then professional cover design. This is huge. You can really see the difference between someone who's tackled the cover themselves and versus someone who is more professional. And this was an ad through MIBL Art, which is actually a company we've used a few different times for book covers, and they are fabulous. So I highly, highly recommend them. But you can see that they took this previous cover that an author created and made it into something that is much more attractive for that specific market. This is the difference between that self-publishing and then more professional self-publishing, really how it can show up. And this is what I mean about like way before how a lot of the book covers would look as self-publishing. But then with those who actually invest in professional covers, it makes a huge, huge difference. So this picture is really powerful for that reason. So ISBN, copyright, and barcodes are all separate things that need purchase. ISBNs, yes. Copyright, yes, that's going to be after your book has been printed. You'll want to send in a copy of your book to the U.S. Library of Congress if you're U.S. based. And it just secures that copyright just in case anything ever comes up where someone's challenging it that, you wrote the book first or whatever it may be. It's great to have that. Barcodes, I'm glad you brought this up, do not buy barcodes. So when you're on myidentifiers.com and they're like, oh, for $75 more, buy a barcode, don't buy barcodes. Anytime that you use a template through KDP for your cover design, or if you go through a professional cover designer, they will give you the barcode with your ISBN. So it's usually all built into one of the templates anyway. So don't buy barcodes, just buy ISBNs. I'm glad you brought that up. All right, I'm going to have to go through these next parts pretty fast. There's so much content here, guys. All right, the other things you need is a solid pitch, blurb, and tagline. Tagline's really quite optional. It's usually that, extra line that really draws somebody into the front of your book. Let me see if she has one here. No, this is not really there. So a pitch is really going to be, typically one line that sells your book, that really brings people into your book. It's a great one to practice with. I have a couple of examples up here. Let's see here that I did with our authors for this challenge. So some nonfiction pitch examples. As a sexual abuse survivor, Jacqueline Y shares the powerful 8-step holistic process that led to a journey of whole self-healing, inner peace, self-love, and freedom. So it really just summarizes what her book, her framework are all about. Empowered, a parent survival guide to navigating the mental health care system, provides parents with the necessary tools to feel knowledgeable and confident when seeking behavioral services for their child. Here's a memoir one. The Parakeet Drawing is a memoir of how one kind act from a stranger empowered a little girl after years of abuse as her alcoholic mother stood by, altering the course of the child's life forever. And then As a True Story Told Through Dual Perspectives, a 2004 deployment to Iraq sparks a powerful love between two soldiers. When a devastating explosion crumbles the course of their relationship and lives, they must navigate through the trauma to find healing and learn to trust each other again. So pitches are just really powerful ways to summarize the book and to have it roll off your tongue when you're talking to people about what your book is about. You don't want to just kind of like go into this ramble, right, about your book. You want to have one solid line that you can easily just share the power of your book, the impact of your book. So that's one of the most important parts that you can refine and work on and get feedback on to, make it solid, because you'll use it more than anything else, not just before your book is released, but afterwards, constantly. Your blurb is going to be more of what you see on the sales pages for any book that you look up on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, whatever it may be. And it's more of the longer description of what your book is about in a way that is going to bring the audience in to have them want to read your book. Advanced reviews, these are usually called more editorial reviews. These are great to have right before you solidify your cover design for your book, if you want them. Not everyone chooses to have them, but these can come from, if you have different professional reviews done on your book, if you're having other authors who are in similar genres, especially if they're popular authors, read your book and they provide a little review. There are just more ways, right, to get people interested in reading your book. Metadata and relevant keywords, these are going to be all things that really help you show up in search results. So they're very important, because you have to approach these in such a way of, what will people be like? What will my target audience be searching for? And sometimes you're using really different language than what you might use to describe your book, because that's probably what the average person is searching for, and you want your book to be able to pop up in those search results. So you'll be entering these in the back end. When you upload your book, you're going to have a section for metadata and relevant keywords, but then you also want to use these same relevant keywords and metadata in your blurb and about the author, and any sort of place that will also pull into these search engines. It's truly about search engine optimization. And this is something that, they get pretty detailed with all of these things, and we talk about it more in the self-publishing side of our Soulful Author Journey program, because they go into a lot of detail here. You also want to have a clear distribution plan. So you'll want to know the platforms that you want to publish on. For example, my 3 favorite are KDP, Ngram Spark, and Draft2 Digital. There are pros and cons for each. You'll also hear the term wide versus exclusive. Wide is when you're really publishing on any platform across the board. Exclusive, it comes down to ebooks specifically. On KDP, there's this option. If you guys have done Kindle Unlimited reading through Amazon, that's when a user can pay a certain amount of money each month to get access to any book that's listed under Kindle Unlimited. However, to be able to include your book in Kindle Unlimited, you have to agree to Amazon that you will not sell your book on any other platform. So it can be really great for debut authors to get their book in front of a new audience. But there are also a lot of restrictions, because maybe your ideal audience is more, they find your book on other places outside of Amazon. So again, there's pros and cons when determining that. And specifically, that's for ebooks. Category decisions, these are the categories that your book comes up in. This is one of the biggest components when you hear people say that they're a #1 Amazon bestseller. It's really figuring out the right categories for your book to be in. We use KDP Rocket for that, or I think it's called Rocket Publisher Rocket now. It's fabulous to help figure out how many books need to be to sell for your book to rank a certain number in specific categories. You want to figure out your publishing date, when your book is officially released to the world, because then that way you can kind of work backwards with everything else that you need to get done and achieve before then. You want to have an email marketing list, which is the #1 best thing that you can have as an author. And it is never too early to start building that up. And what that does is just, it gives you a list of people who want to read your book, or who are connected with your book, or who are waiting for your book, and you're able to get in front of them on a regular basis, saying when your book is available, sharing excerpts or insight into the books. It really helps you just create a really personal relationship with those people. And it's very important, because you own that email marketing list. Whereas who knows with social media, right? You hear accounts getting shut down all the time for random things. So if you're relying on something like Facebook or Instagram Instagram to build up your fan base, your reader base, that could be gone tomorrow because it's not in your control, whereas the email marketing list is. So it's one of the best things that you can build up as an author, especially if you're planning on releasing multiple books. Author platforms, this is really where you want to be. I always recommend number one as a website, but then some sort of social media base where they can get to know you on a more personal level. But whatever you choose, you want to make sure that you are continually catering the content to the target audience that you want to reach. So keep that in mind, whether you choose, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, whatever it might be, as your main platform to get in front of people or to connect with people, you want to make sure that content is relevant to them. So it needs to be more than likely separate from your own personal life, unless your personal life is what you're talking about in your books. All right. So getting started with this, like I said, this is really just such a highlight of the self-publishing. If you guys haven't yet, you should have received an email with the link for today's call, with also this link to Dropbox. In Dropbox, you have the self-publishing workshop workbook that you can fill out. This will be really great with helping you go through a lot of the information we covered today to kind of collect your thoughts and to work on some action items related to them. So please make sure that you go in there and download that if you haven't yet. And then the slides from today are in here. And then once I'm done with the call, I'm going to be uploading the recording. So you can go back in here and watch the recording. So you'll have all of this. Oh, Allison, they are getting the link at 10 a.m. Okay, so you'll receive this Dropbox link with all of this. So make sure that if you haven't downloaded that workbook yet, that you do. But like I said, there's so much that we go over here and so many details that we actually are launching our Soulful Author Journey program as well, coming up at the end of, or it kicks off at September 5th. I keep thinking we're in August. We're almost in August. It kicks off September 5th. And what this is truly just a full course with 12 weeks of live coaching and support that walks you through the entire journey of writing, publishing, and promotion of your book. So even if you're still writing, or you're going to go back and write more or write another book someday, you'll have lifetime access in the course to everything that we do on a coaching front to help people write the most impactful books possible. You'll have the self-publishing step-by-step guidance in this course. So it'll show you videos on how to, upload your documents, specifically what you need. How do you actually write your pitch? How do you write a blurb? What do you do with the ISBNs and all of that? We have some editor recommendations, book cover recommendations. So it'll be the full support. And then you'll also have us on a live coaching front to answer any questions you have or get feedback for 12 full weeks. So it's a great time to say it for 12 weeks starting September 5th. I'm going to take every step that I need to take to self-publish this book and get it out there in the world. And then not only that, but you also have the what do you do after publishing or even leading into publishing with that promotion piece, with getting your book out into the world. And how do I get in front of people? How do I talk about it? How do I make the biggest impact possible? All of that is included in the Soulful Author Journey program. And then the cool part is by attending this workshop, you actually get a very special coupon for $200 off of the course price, as long as you register by Monday, August 1st. And then you'll also receive a bonus, which is our self-publishing guide. I want to show you this really fast because I love this thing. So you'll also receive this as a free bonus for signing up for the Soulful Author Journey program by Monday. This is a in-depth book that will take you step by step again through every step of self-publishing and really making sure that you're doing everything the right way, including author pictures, how to exactly nail the cover design, the keywords, the metadata, what you do with that, if you decide to do an audiobook, how to set up the publishing timeline. You'll receive all of this as a bonus as well if you sign up by Monday. So you'll receive that email to the one that Allison was talking about, that link to sign up by Monday with the special $200 off, and the extra bonus will be in the follow-up email. But the most important thing that I want to stress, I know it was a lot of information today, but self-publishing is naturally detailed because there's a lot that goes into creating your book and a lot that it takes in getting it out to the world. No matter what, just remember that this book should reflect your brand, meaning who do you want to show up as in the world? What do you stand for? What do you want to reflect? And who do you still want to be remembered as when you're gone? That is that true, authentic reflection that I cannot stress enough. So the most important part after any workshop is to take advantage of the action steps. Like I said, take a look at the workbook. If you haven't yet, go through it, make a plan of action for the next 30 days so that you are able to apply something that you took away from today. Thank you all for joining me. I will stay on for a few more minutes if you do have any questions. But thank you for your time today and for being here. And good luck with the self-publishing route.